You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome to Cards to the Moon. This is our 59th podcast episode, and hosting is myself, Clark, from 5 Card Guys on Instagram. And with me today, as always, is John, who is Trade You at Recess, and Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards returns after a 1-week absence. Welcome back, Hyung.
Thank you.
Okay, so off the top, actually, it's been a little slow on the sports card news front, so I thought we could revisit our Pick One segment we did on last week's show, specifically the one that John came up with. And we want to get your take on it, Hyung, because we were curious how you would decide.
Okay, I actually didn't listen to last week's episode, so I didn't hear it. So let's hear it.
Raw thoughts. All right.
So John, set it up.
So would you rather a Luka Grail, let's call it the National Treasures RPA, the Logo Man 1 of 1,
okay,
which sold for $4.6 million, versus 2018 Prism Luka, the entire stock of Prism PSA 10s, so with a market cap around $5 million. So one Luka silvers, PSA 10 silvers, the entire stock.
How many is that?
So all 2100 silver PSA 10s at $5 million, or one singular Luka Grail NT Logo Man auto.
That's like, do you want $100 bill or you want a $1 bill? A bunch of $1 bills, right? Oh my goodness, Johnny. Holy. Yeah, for me,
there's more nuance to it than that, I think, after we discussed it. But go ahead.
Yeah, I honestly rather the one big card, to be honest. Like for me, I think it's going to be easier to be liquid and be able to I guess there's both sides. You could be liquid, but then you're gonna have to sell. That's a lot of eBay fees, right? So for me it's I'm going with the Logo Man, like, for sure.
Young, he's so pure hearted. He wasn't like us thinking we're evil.
Why? What you guys picked the why?
I was just thinking it'd be nice to feel that power, wield that power like Pharma Bro, and just own all of the stock.
Oh, just the market share, eh? But you never know. All of a sudden, 100 more, grade at PSA 10, because nowadays a PSA 7 could be a PSA 10. They crack it out of an SGC 7 and get a PSA 10. You never know.
I didn't think about that.
Good point. I didn't think about that either.
We also said, like, if we're picking the lot of 2100 silver PSA 10s, like, you got to pretty much sell those at the same time, like sell it a lot sale.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I'd be annoyed just selling that. Like, it'd be cool to have, though. I would say, like, cornering a market like that, I think it's a good move if you have the opportunity. But 2100. That's a lot. Like, maybe, like, if it was like 50, it's a lot easier to kind of liquidate. But yeah, I'm going with the big boy. I'll take a 20-30% flip on a 4.6 million.
Good call.
There was an interesting point you brought up, John, where it's kind of like the pharma bro situation. If the hobby turns on you, and those silver PSA 10s just lose their value because people just don't like you. They don't want to buy from you, right? So
interesting 1v1 though.
Yeah. So I was saying that's the kind of 1v1 we come up with when you're not around, Hyung, man.
Hey, so I'm all about the creativity.
We go off the rails.
We went off the rails.
It sounds like it, like literally.
All right, we'll see what we come up with later on in the show, because we'll have our regular Pick One segment then. But for now, let's move on to hobby headlines. Okay, so we've been talking about how we're kind of in this slowdown period in the hobby, with a lot of prices settling down a bit from all-time highs we saw a couple years ago. And it's not that we think the hobby is dying, but it's just, mirroring what's happening in the greater economy. So during this bearish market, I think in general, it's a good time to think about how we can make the hobby better. Like, what would we like to see in the short or long term to improve different parts of the hobby so that maybe more collectors can get excited again and start spending their money again, So maybe that's something we can discuss right now. What's on our so-called hobby wish list? Okay, so I can start this segment off just to kind of get our brains going, but I think this one's a no-brainer, actually. We need AI tech to be integrated in our grading processes to keep things, consistent when it comes to grading and to also speed up the process in general, right?
I agree.
I feel lately we've been hearing more stories about collectors getting one grade from one grading company and
Ridiculous.
then they resubmit to another grading company and it comes back better or worse. Like, there's no rhyme or reason. And there's just no consistency. But if we had AI tech that works, that, then we can reduce debates like whether a card is trimmed or why one card is this grade and, why it's a gem mint or a near mint, just with greater transparency, right? So, I think whether we like it or not, grading is going to be a big part of the hobby. But man, we need to make it better and faster.
Right.
All right. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Agree, disagree? Anything to add?
I 100% agree, Clark. I'm just gonna put it out there. I told you I sent in, those that Torkelson Sparkle auto that I had, that PSA 8, which I thought it was cleaner, and also an Ovechkin that came out of a raw card review BGS 9.5 that ended up PSA 8ing. Aiding, is that even a word? But PSA 8.
PSA 8, okay. Yeah.
Right? I call it aiding now because all I see is PSA 8s, right? So, I was pretty bitter because I was sure that, that it wasn't right. It didn't sit well with me because there was such a discrepancy. So, obviously, SGC, being $33, regardless of, the value of the card, I sent it there to get, an honest review, and they both came back 9.5s, right? Which is equivalent to a PSA 9. But I'm just saying that's a big difference. That's a big discrepancy in terms of what you're getting. So for me, I 100% agree. And the fact that we're still, talking about these crazy prices because of, PSA 10, I think the true value will start to show, especially in this, kind of recession that we're kind of going through, and you're going to see true value more so than anything, right? So I 100% agree. We and I think that's on the grading companies too, right? We can't really police it. You can't literally say something has to happen. It's no, the companies internally who are in charge of this, they need to better themselves in terms of, their kind of what they believe in and their values as a company, right? We need transparency. And this is why I was all for companies like FCG at the time, because I just needed transparency in grading, right? And I think that's so crucial in the hobby. And I think that's part of a very important part of, hopefully during this time, we'll have some solutions to that. Like you said, AI technology, it will take a lot of the subjectivity of these variances of these grades out of it. So I 100% agree.
I think during a better market, one of the good things that's going to come out of it is hopefully product goes down. We see sales at Walmarts and Targets, sales at your local hobby shops, kids kind of getting back into it. That's going to be big, man. I think during the last 2 years, during the heat of the market, it was mostly about gambling, pretty much, right? I think the fun of ripping kind of went away because on average you're spending $300 to $500 on a box to rip. That's a lot of money for most people. So when you rip, you're thinking ROI, right? You're not really having fun with the rip and enjoying as a hobbyist. You're just ripping to try and get ROI because you just dropped $500 or $1,000 or $1,200 or whatever, right? So I think if we start seeing, low-end hobby boxes going for $80 on sale, some blaster boxes at Walmart going for $19, that'll be great. It'll be a fun rip. You don't feel like you got fleeced and, I just wasted all this money. It'll be you'll kind of go back to more like being the hobby again. So I think that's something that hopefully we can kind of look forward to. A little bit of a silver lining during this, and then just long-term hobby wish list for me. No more sticker autos. No more player worn. No more jersey or relic is not affiliated with any player or specific moment. None of that. I think it's just like straight cards numbered out of 200 or 100. If you're not going to make on-card autos, if you're not going to make a relic that is from a specific game or game used, don't even put it on the cards. When Fanatics eventually works on that stuff, I don't want to see any of that stuff. So that'll be like a long-term hobby wish list for me.
Nice. Yeah, I think you'll be waiting a while though.
Yeah,
I think it's logistically impossible.
Yeah, real wish list. Ugh.
I got something, Clark.
Okay.
I think for us, like the influencers in the space, I think a little less emphasis on the flipping, and more emphasis on collecting and investing, and kind of like what you look for in certain cards. Because I remember when you did look and do your due diligence on a like Ronnie Acuna Jr. card, you kind of want to know what set it came from. You want to know the odds of it, the print runs, all that is important intel for a long-term investment strategy, right? So for me, it's like more emphasis on kind of like the collecting aspect, which can be investing, and less, I guess, it's kind of like baseball, similar to baseball, the way people teach baseball nowadays. It was so data driven, and it's all about, what you're outputting in terms of kind of like your swing or whatever. And the computer spits out these numbers and you expect to be a good baseball player based out of those numbers. It's like, that's not really true, right? Because you got to play the game at the end of the day, right? So it's kind of like that parallel where I wish the influencers would focus more on that, right? So you're getting more of a true collector investor mindset, as opposed to the people that just want a quick buck, right? And greedy in that sense, because I feel like those are the things that create these false inflated prices in our hobby. So it's like it will eliminate some of that, and less people will want to sell every day at that point, right? And to me, that's slowing down the volatility of the price, which in the long term I think it's a healthy thing. And that's what you see in a long term, like bullish market, is that's what you kind of hope for, right? So I hope that during this time there's going to be more people that like to focus on stuff like that. So there's going to be new and upcoming influencers, that maybe the other people that were in it for the wrong reason leave that space, and then it's more new people that love the hobby. They start their own YouTube channels, they start their own podcasts, they start their own kind of like even companies, right? Like, why not, right? At that point. So yeah, I would encourage that, because I think it'd do more justice than what we're seeing in the last couple of years.
Yeah, no, I like that. That includes us too, right? Like,
100%.
When in the hype of the hobby, everyone's about investing and flipping. But I think, any influencers or content creators that stay in that space, we just got to evolve as the hobby evolves, especially during bear and bull markets. We got to react accordingly. And it's kind of what you said too, John, with retail possibly getting cheaper, when it's not about just investing because everything is going down. Mm-hmm. It's not just about flipping. We kind of hopefully go back to the hobby side of things, where we the collecting part, like you said, Hyung, like why we all did it as kids, and kind of get back into the hobby for those reasons,
right.
So I really like the idea.
Good one.
I don't know if you guys have any other ones. Like, I was thinking, if we continued this bear market for over a year or 2 years, like, I love local card shows, right? But when the hobby was just booming, they're held at these large international trade centers. We're going to one this coming weekend,
right. Yeah.
And we're all looking forward to it. But if we're in a bear market, like, I could see that it won't be as, crowded or packed. And honestly, it might be a good opportunity to like change venues, like make it a smaller show, make it a little bit more niche, have it at different event places where we wouldn't typically have card shows, like at a bar or at a restaurant, you know what I mean? Right. And just make it more chill and like have almost like a trade night vibe. So maybe something like that.
For sure. Less card shows, I think, is good for the hobby, to be honest, because it's like in the summer or now that like everything's kind of open, I feel like there's a card show every weekend, but then you go to like a local card show like every weekend. It's exhausting, and not only exhausting now that we are kind of seeing, a bear market in terms of the space. It costs a lot of money to set up, especially if you're out of town, like you're coming to the Toronto Expo this weekend. That's a 4-day trek. And, you're going to spend money on food. You're going to spend money on the venue. You're going to spend money on hotel if you're out of town, gas being, crazy, like liquid gold, essentially. It's, you know what I mean? That's where we're at. And I don't think it's worth it for a lot of people, especially when it's, I guess money is kind of like the center focus of it, right? So I agree, like smaller shows, less frequency. Like I don't think it should be as frequent is what I'm saying. I don't mind like the Toronto card show because it is the big one, but like I think less card shows will, I think, be beneficial as well.
Yeah. All right. I got another one. If you guys, I don't have one. In terms of manufacturers, like I'm thinking of Panini. I'm thinking of Panini Select specifically. They should, just kind of rethink what they've been doing over the past few years, and maybe kind of, have a better game plan in terms of what product they want to release. Maybe stop coming up with brand new parallels every subsequent set, and just really focus on quality a little bit more, and not dilute the number of hits in any particular set. I don't know. Just some advice from Panini and Topps and Fanatics.
Print runs for sure.
Print runs, yeah, exactly.
100%. That's what killed the hobby in the past, and not saying it's gonna happen now, but like you gotta cut it. Look at the value of, like, let's just say a 2020 Topps Chrome F1, and it was a print run according to the space of the hobby at the time. But look how valuable those become over time. And the only reason Topps is upset is they probably on their IPO they sold for too cheap, right? So I rather see a higher price point at that point at release, where they could, instead of growing sideways and releasing many print runs of stuff, right? Make it a little more rare and more desirable for the collector, because that's essentially what's gonna hold value.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I like that, Clark. I think that the point you make about companies kind of focusing on the quality, that would be a big wish list as well, right? I think when and another part of this wish list, and it goes along, is getting back on track with releases. So many of these companies are like 6 months behind. Upper Deck is Upper Deck SP Authentic is like 18 months behind. It's ridiculous, right? So
crazy.
I think, it wasn't to their own fault. There's logistic problems and all of that happened during COVID. But the fact that you're seeing them continue to push out new product while some of the main products are still not even out yet, like people are complaining. Mm-hmm. You guys haven't even launched Prism yet, and yet you're releasing Flux and this and that, right? So I think you're right. I think in terms of like bringing back quality, and this goes along with the relics and like on card autos, all of that stuff. If you're gonna release products, if it happens to be a very expensive product, like make it a good quality product. Make the hits really quality. Don't be putting in, like on a hobby box, one hit per box is like the paper napkin relic. Like, don't do that stuff, right? Like, make it like a quality. Exactly.
Sprinkle 24 karat gold dust on on stuff and make it valuable. Maybe Fanatics will do that in the higher parallels, because then you actually have a physical asset that's worth more desirable.
Right. Like, we don't know what's going on in the back end, but I'd imagine it's pretty chaotic, right? Like they're behind on things, they're behind on logistics, and it just seems like they're rushing everything, right? So products are rushed, like the photo ops and this and that and whatever's coming out. So I think That's a great one where you can, these companies can kind of realign and get back to kind of catering to the hobby and catering to the space.
Yeah, good point. All right. I think we came up with a good number of ideas to improve the hobby. We'd love to hear back from our listeners. If you had any ideas of your own, you could always contact us on Instagram at Cards to the Moon, all one word. And we'd love to share what you guys come up with, maybe in a future episode. Okay, let's go to our next segment we call Buy, Sell, Hold. We did this a couple of times already in previous shows. So as a reminder, for this segment, I'm going to give you a list of 3 players, and you have to say which one you would buy now, which one you would rather sell, and then which one you would hold. Okay, 1 for each card. All right. I already kind of came up with 4 list of 3 players, and the first one is Klay Thompson, Jordan Poole, and Jaylen Brown. So I picked 3 guys that are, not the top tier, not the Steph Currys, not the Jason Tatums, but, maybe a half step down of the teams that are currently in the NBA Finals, Golden State and the Celtics. So, out of those 3, Klay, Jordan Poole, and Jaylen Brown, which one are you buying? Which one are you selling? Which one are you holding at the moment?
So I have to have one of each?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, okay.
You can't say I'm buying all 3 and selling all 3.
No, right? Yeah, I'd be selling all 3. No. I would hold... This changes the game.
This one's tough.
Yeah, I'm holding Klay Thompson. I just think like some of his stuff is I don't know, it's 50-50 I think for Klay Thompson because he's a tier 2 player, but he's developed into a pretty nice career, and we'll see in the next few years, so I'm going to hold on him. In terms of between Jordan Poole and Jaylen Brown, this is a tough one, but I'm going to say I'm buying Jaylen Brown, I'm selling Jordan Poole.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, Jordan Poole has a lot of hype, coming up because he was kind of like, is he gonna have that, superstar or all-star year? And I think he had a decent season, but I think there's a lot of hype in his price, and I don't think that he's even close to where he potentially can get. So I think he's gonna have a bit of, I guess, a downward trend in pricing. I don't see his pricing increasing too much. Jaylen Brown, I guess his career is a lot more established at this point, so I'd be buying him just based on value between Jordan Poole and Jaylen Brown.
Okay. Yeah. So you're buy Jaylen, sell Jordan, and hold on Klay.
Right.
All right. How about you, Johnny?
I'm gonna go sell Jaylen. I don't know what his prices are like. I don't follow Jaylen Brown, but I'd imagine his cards are selling. Maybe not that big of a spike, but I just see Jaylen Brown. He's a really good player, but he kind of falls. We've always had this conversation about Lillard, and Lillard's a step up from Jaylen Brown, but kind of like that, all-star player that doesn't necessarily get respect, and we don't know what it's going to take for him to really get that respect. And even if they win it, I think it's Tatum that's going to get the shine, especially in the hobby space. And I really don't think Jaylen Brown cards, and I could be wrong about this, I don't see it being that volatile. So I think if you can cash out right now, cash out on Jaylen Brown. I'm with Hyung in that Jordan Poole is volatile, and he's a bit high right now. So I'm going to say hold on Jordan Poole. I do kind of like, now that we're watching it, eyes are on him. There is that hype kind of baking into who Jordan Poole is, and I'm sure it's going to go into next season. So I don't mind him as a buy, but for now I'm going to put hold because I do think during the playoffs it's a bit overspiked. And then Klay Thompson, I'm not sure how I feel. I got to put him in some kind of category, so I'm going to say buy for Klay Thompson. But I'm kind of with Hyung. Like, I'm not sure where I really want to put Klay. I think he's probably going to go down as a Hall of Famer. Golden State looks like they might be on track to win another one. We'll see what the Celtics say to that. But Klay is probably going to leave a pretty good legacy. His cards this year, I don't think have moved too much because number one, the bear market, and then number two, just riddled with injuries, coming back after almost 2.5 years. So I think next year Klay might have a chance to kind of redeem himself, but at the same time, he is getting older. So yeah, I'm not sure how I feel, but I'll put him in buy category for now.
Yeah, this was, I think, a hard one for me as well, but I'm going to go with the same order that Hyung went with. I'm holding Klay. His Silver Prisms PSA 10 last sold for almost $5,000. So
Damn.
It's up there.
It's because it's the 2012 and lower
It's that
print run.
212, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a lot more.
Top 24. Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, those silvers are crazy.
So, but if you look at the base, definitely a different story. There's 813 of the PSA 10s.
It's still cheap though, I think.
It's going for, just over 300.
Yeah, that's
dang.
cheap for that pop count.
That's nice.
So, I actually remember the one card I was waiting for that I submitted to PSA. It was the Klay base Prism.
You got
I just got it back last week, and then I PSA 10. So
nice.
Oh, sweet.
So, there you go, $300, baby.
Yeah, nice.
I think I spent $85 a year and a half ago.
Hey, Clark, it's really a PSA 8.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. So hey, it was the flip of a coin, I guess, and I got a PSA 10 this time. But
always a good feeling.
Yeah. So but I'm holding. Klay. I believe in the most, and he probably has the most value for his higher end cards. But I like Jaylen, man. I like Jaylen Brown, and I don't know. Especially it might be different now if the Celtics go all the way. If they lose in the finals, you're probably going to hear chatter again about breaking up Tatum and Brown again.
Right.
And I think, that could actually help Brown if he's by himself. And, he'll give him the opportunity to step up. I like his talent. And, his Silver Prisms right now is pretty cheap, like under 400 as well, PSA 10.
Nice.
But it once sold during the hype for 2,500. So there are people that believe in Jaylen Brown too. So I could see volatility in the near future if everything breaks right. And Jordan Poole, man, I could be wrong. I've always been wrong on Jordan Poole for the last year, so I could totally be wrong again. But at some point, I'm gonna, I'm gonna have to stop hating on Jordan Poole. But out of these three, I'm selling Jordan Poole on the current hype that he could be the next Curry, which is ridiculous. But
right.
If people are buying it for that reason, I'll sell it to them. Okay.
Good point.
All right. Our next list of three, we're going to go to hockey. And I chose these guys because they're doing really well in the playoffs. They're still in the playoffs, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, John. But Draisaitl with the Oilers, Kucherov with the Lightning, and Nathan MacKinnon with the Avalanche. I don't know if you saw his one goal end to end. Behind the net. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And just kind of reminded who Nathan MacKinnon was, and his talent. But out of those three, who are you buying, selling, and holding?
I feel like this one's a lot easier for me. Draisaitl, it's a hold. Kucherov is a buy and MacKinnon is a sell still. I think McKinnon's prices are still pretty high, even though it's on a downward trend. I think if you could get it under 1,000, I think it's a pretty good deal. But it's been up to like 1,500, 2,000 for a young guns. PSA 10. So I think MacKinnon is still high, and I really like Draisaitl. I think he's a beast. I think you're gonna realize how beastly he is over the next few years when he has another few 100-point seasons and is just killing it, right? So I think his prices are still reasonable for his talent. So, and I think Kucherov's just cheap for what he is, right? So yeah, that's mine.
Okay,
nice. Kucherov, I think this is like third week in a row talking about Kucherov. He's a buy, no problem. I'm gonna go Draisaitl sell. This is the first time that people are talking Edmonton Oilers possibly winning the Stanley Cup and actually believing that might be the case. So I think McDavid, Draisaitl, I mean, if you don't know, take a look at NHL playoff scoring leaders right now, and they are just flattening people. They're double the points of anybody in third place behind those two. So I think for the first time ever, because there's this hype, there's a little bit of like the Stanley Cup win kind of baking into their conversation. great time to kind of take advantage a bit of that hype. And then MacKinnon playing Draisaitl right now. They're about to play tonight. I mean, we're missing the game. But I would say Colorado was probably going to be a little bit forgotten, and they might actually come out on top. So I'm going to say hold on MacKinnon until the Edmonton hype kind of simmers down, and then, yeah. So hold, Kucherov buy, Draisaitl sell.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, you know how I guess I've been labeled as a Kucherov hater. So I don't know. He's in my sell category still. I don't know what his limit is in terms of card value. So I'll take whatever I can take at this point. So Kucherov's a sell for me. Although Draisaitl came close to being a sell too for exactly the reasons you mentioned, John.
Right.
Like, I don't know how much of, and I think I said this before, like how much of his play is based on McDavid's play. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
If you separated those guys, do those two guys produce at the same level? McDavid, I believe he would, but
right.
Draisaitl, I don't have that strong conviction. He'll still be a good player. I'm not saying he's going to be nothing, right? But I would hold on Draisaitl, just not knowing where that stands. And then I know I still believe MacKinnon, man. Like he's, I do agree he's a little bit pricey, but it's been coming down over the last half year. And even I was considering getting one of his like Future Watch auto cards when it was more at the peak, so I was pretty high on MacKinnon to start with. I just believe in his talent. If he stays healthy another complete year next year, I think he can get up there in the top 5 again. And he plays on an amazing team. I hope they win the Stanley Cup this year, and that would boost his value even further. So I want to try to get in on MacKinnon while I can. All right, so I think we all had different opinions for the hockey one. So that's a split. Okay, we're going to go to football this time. And 3 young QBs. Now being the off season, they might not have been getting the attention they have been lately, but fall's coming up sooner than we think. So I have Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, and Trevor Lawrence. Which one are you buying, selling, holding?
Joe Burrow, I'm selling Joe Burrow. I'm holding Justin Herbert. And I'm buying Trevor Lawrence because I find like he's really cheap. Mm-hmm. I find Trevor Lawrence, there's this huge amount of hype, but then it kind of like, I wouldn't say crap the bed, but like it wasn't as Cinderella story as, people expected him. And it's kind of like Zion prices, right? That right. Hype. And do I believe in his future? That's tough. He's played 1 season and it was below mediocre. So, but for me, it's like I could see him being a lot more volatile, whereas Herbert and Joe Burrow already have the inflated prices in them. And I think Joe Burrow has a lot of hype based off, what he did last year. And in the long-term injury kind of, concerns me, even though he came back pretty strong. And I believe in Justin Herbert long-term over Joe Burrow anyway, so for me, that's I'd go in that order.
Yep, I like that.
Yep. Exact same order for me too. Trevor Lawrence, I think of the 3 would be the buy. He had the hype of early on, but obviously such a horrible team that his cards just went. I think he is probably one of the most hyped players in cards in the last 2 years that have bottomed out within the hype years. Most hype players, they stay hyped for at least 3 years. Trevor Lawrence kind of bottomed out, and it's because of his team success. You can't say that he's a horrible quarterback. So I think he's the buy. Herbert, I agree. I think he's the hold. Of the 3, I think I like Herbert's talent the most. He seems like the most polished quarterback. And then Joe Burrow is right there too. He's just as good. But he's got the hype, right? He's got the hype train going right now. He's got the swag. And to be honest, I could kind of see Joe Burrow, like I kind of mentioned before, like kind of like Tom Brady style. Like Herbert might put up the stats. He's not on a worse team, but he might be a monster in terms of stats, kind of like Peyton Manning. And I could see Burrow maybe not putting up a great season, but then may possibly performing again in the playoffs. One of that type of quarterback. So you might see Joe Burrow prices might, simmer during the season while he's not throwing like 4 or 5 touchdowns a game, something like that. But it's just my my opinion. I could be completely wrong because I know absolutely nothing about football, but.
We have a pretty dismal football track record when it comes to picking out Super Bowl winners and who's in the playoffs. But anyway, it's going to be a sweep. Yeah, I'm selling on Joe Burrow. Like, I actually was really high on Joe Burrow when he had that injury. I can't remember even what the injury was, but he had that injury, and then he didn't play for the rest of the season.
Down.
And and I was thinking of getting one. Like, same thing with the hype that he came up with, and it's just kind of just bad luck. And I didn't buy one, and now look at the prices, right? And the next year he goes to the Super Bowl. So I would have loved to buy him back then, but now it's just so hyped. His prices are a little too high. Yeah, and I could see it coming down. So I'm selling at these prices. I have a Herbert because I thought he was just kind of being overshadowed while Burrow was in the spotlight. So I bought him during the Super Bowl run and got him for a good price. And I'm holding because, if you look at even fantasy football analysts, they think Herbert's going to have a monster season, right? With an upgraded team and just, his passing ability. Yeah. So I'm holding, hoping to see that go up. And like you guys both said, Trevor Lawrence, so much hype to come in and then quiet, right? With the awfulness of the Jaguars and the coaching situation. And but the talent, I'm sure we still all believe in. And his prices are, compared to what it was even before he played one game, much more affordable now. So definitely more of a risk worth taking at this point.
Random thought of the day. Do you guys think Trevor Lawrence looks like the prince from Shrek? If you guys remember that face. Every time I see that, like when he first came in, I was like, yo, that kid, he looks like the prince from Shrek.
The funny thing is, while you're thinking that, I was thinking, remember the Titans? Do you remember the Titans? Sunshine, the quarterback? Yeah. That's Trevor Lawrence.
He's just got...
That's weird. I was thinking...
When I look at him, he look, like back in our days, like Fabio, like... He just looks like one of those guys that thinks he's like God's gift to women. Like, I just look at him, I'm like, man, this guy.
The hair flip.
Yeah, the hair flip, the square face.
Honestly, I wasn't thinking any of those guys. I was thinking he was just one of the Hanson brothers. Right?
Yeah.
Those guys.
Oh, yeah.
No, from
the
music.
The band. Yeah. Hanson. Was it brothers or?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Are they called Hanson? No. I know who you're talking about. I know who you're talking about. Those 3 kids.
I think it's aging you though.
It is.
Half the listeners are like, who are they talking about right now? All right, we'll go to our last list. It's baseball now, and these 3 guys are in the early MVP discussion. All right, Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Judge, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. They're top 4. I can't remember what order. Ohtani's number 1 right now, but
This is a little tougher than I thought, just because I really like Ohtani, man. Like, I just look at his like he's so good, and I don't see his physicality stop. Like, I seen a picture of Ohtani and Vlad standing next to each other, and honestly, Ohtani is like a Greek god. Yeah, like it's just like he is the ideal, I guess, athletic type.
Right.
For baseball. So I see longevity actually in Ohtani, but I do still think his prices are really high. Like, just because he has that international hype, and he obviously is a two-way player, and his ability to get his WAR up, he's going to lead the WAR every year. The league in WAR every year if he keeps his pace, right? And he's not stopping, especially with a pretty powerful team. But like I said, he's still, heavily, I guess, desired. So I think his prices are still crazy. Like, all his rookie autos are just ridiculous, unaffordable. Right. So yeah, I'm cashing out on Ohtani. I'm buying Aaron Judge. You know, for me, I think he's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's going to hit 500 plus, and he's going to be a lifetime New York Yankee. So, I don't know if that's true, lifetime, but I think, and he's absolutely mashing. And Vladdy's a hold for me. I think his prices were cheap to begin with, so he's not doing too well right off the gate. I mean, he's resembling similar numbers to 2019 and 2020, where people were doubting his ability, and I'm in no way doubting Vladdy's ability, because I think he's past that based on his performance last year. He's really figured it out, but I think just hitting in general in the league is down, and I think that affects Vladdy, because that's his number one tool. You take that away, Vladdy is really nothing, right? So I think he's gonna have to show. I have no doubt that he's still 23 years old, adjusting to big league pitching. People are gonna do a lot of studying on Vladdy, and they're gonna give him challenges, and that's essentially gonna make Vladdy that much better in the long run, right? So I think he's a hold, just because I believe in his ability, and his prices are too low to sell anyway. So that's the order I would go.
Right.
Makes sense to me. Yeah.
I'm going to say sell on Judge. We all know what mashing home runs does to card prices and hype. And while that hype is strong right now, Judge has been really quiet in the hobby in the last 12 to 18 months. People who have been holding Judge, or people who like Judge, have been waiting for this moment, and it's here. And I think his card prices, I'm assuming his card prices are moving, because even in Facebook groups, I see a lot of people asking for Aaron Judge. So I think it's a great time to take advantage, because this run he's on may not last the entire season. He'll probably, finish in the top 5, top 10 home runs, maybe even number 1. But I think it's a good time to sell, because you could honestly even probably get right back into him later on in the season. I'm gonna agree with Hyung and say hold on Vladdy. And I'm going to be on the mindset of buying Ohtani. I feel like Ohtani is now starting to prove, not only health-wise, but obviously he's proven in 1 year that he's a unicorn. But I think if he can start proving the consistency, which he kind of is, he's just going to be one of those like absolutely special players in all of sports. And if you've ever been looking for like a really rare Ohtani or anything Ohtani, I think, maybe not necessarily right now is the time to buy. His prices, yes, they are high, but I feel like Ohtani could be that FOMO guy where he's just so good that he continues to create floors in his pricing. So I'm gonna say buy on Ohtani.
Okay, it's interesting because we're like essentially high on all these players, but we have different strategies in what we want to do with their cards, right? This is going to be part of my kind of spoiler alert. This is going to be part of my pick one segment, but I traded my Topps Chrome rookie auto of Ohtani BGS 954A Vladdy first Bowman Chrome BGS 95. I'm not regretting it, but I'm like, I wish I had that Shohei still, like just because I'm like, oh, what are the chances he's going to have another great season? And of course, like Ohtani is killing it, right. and I have him as a pitcher on my fantasy team. He's killing it as a pitcher too. Like it's ridiculous how he's doing both very well, So, and I just looked at the stats, like he has 11 home runs already, Ohtani. And compared to Vladdy's 9, which is, pretty good too. And then you have Aaron Judge, who has 18, right? So, like, he is just, like, smashing. But I'm actually going to agree with John with Ohtani. I'm looking to just get back in. I think he could create floors. And the reason why I don't regret that trade I made, it's because it was a Topps Chrome. But now maybe I can, that's why I'm thinking of selling Vladdy actually. So that, just to kind of, especially being in the Toronto Expo, maybe there's more of a demand there, and to get into a higher Ohtani, better than my Topps Chrome that I had. So kind of flipping it for an Ohtani again, hopefully. Just because it's just like at some point, I don't want to miss the boat if he does become this historic player with, and he's backing it up, you know what I mean? So I'm buying Ohtani, selling Vladdy, and I'm holding on Judge because, if Judge continues to do what he's doing with the New York Yankees, I think it's going to just keep going up over the long term. Maybe not right away, not volatile as Ohtani could be in terms of pricing. But yeah, I still believe in Judge long term. All right, so yeah, that's our buy, sell, hold segment. We'll do it again. It's interesting to get just different perspectives, and it's also matters like when we're talking about these subjects. You know what I mean? Like markets always change for all these players and all these cards, so that factors into our decision. All right, let's go on and finish off this show with our weekly segment, Pick One. All right, so Hyung, we missed you last week. Do you want to start things off this week?
Sure. I'm going to go with 1,000 Mike Trout updates. I kid.
Or a Bowman Chrome Superfractor.
I kid. I'm going to go, we're going to go super high end here. Because I'm thinking, okay, now that, the dust settles, we're entering a recession, and it might be a good idea to kind of, look for good buying opportunities within the next, like we talked about before the show, Clark, like 12 months to 24 months. I think there's going to be a continual down market just because of our status of our economy. But then with everything, out of a recession, there's opportunity, right? So I think I'm going to go super high end because I believe that these are actual assets, valuable long-term assets. So we're looking in the $25,000 range. So I'm going to go with the 2009 Bowman Chrome Mike Trout X-Fractor Auto. Okay. So it's numbered to 225. A true gem actually sold on eBay for, I believe, $25,000. So that was the last comp. Jeez. Yeah, it is, and I think the previous sale that was non-paid in April was like $30K. So you see kind of it going down, and it probably going to go down even more potentially. Right. But it's pretty rare. So that was about $25K versus a 2003 Topps Chrome LeBron James X-Fractor. So we're in the same category because obviously Topps made both X-Fractors. So this is numbered to 220, but this is a PSA 8.
Right.
Okay, so the alt value on that, because obviously these are really rare cards and they're older cards, so the alt value on that is about $23K. So if you had a $25,000 budget, are you going with the X-Fractor of Mike Trout, his Bowman Chrome kind of like Grail, or you're going to go with the 2003 Topps Chrome X-Fractor Grail for, I guess it would be a Grail for many people as well, numbered to 220.
This might be the first time you hear this coming out of my mouth, but I'm gonna go with Topps Chrome LeBron.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that.
Like we're talking one of the greatest of all time.
Right.
Arguably for some number one. I'll put a little bit of stink eye to that.
Wow.
But his main iconic Topps Chrome rookie card numbered. Like anything numbered right now, especially those older Topps Chrome, they're so rare, any condition. And PSA 8, let's call a spade a spade. PSA 8 is actually a really good condition card.
For that year, yeah.
So I think LeBron, his legacy is obviously cemented, taking a bit of a hit this year for the short term, but long term, man, that is a monster card. Now, Mike Trout, on the other hand, I think pre-COVID, this is probably, I'm picking Mike Trout, but there's been just so much chatter about Mike Trout because he's missing 2 years, and kind of like Scotty B has been talking about WAR, and a lot of people kind of focusing on WAR numbers, missing almost two seasons of WAR really takes a hit in terms of like your long-term numbers. When you start comparing Mike Trout to people like Barry Bonds and all of that stuff. So, what was once, what people thought might have been, we're watching the greatest of all time, myself included, that conversation might start changing. And I think this year it has been changing. Now, Mike Trout is proving people wrong, obviously, this year, again. Mm-hmm. But I think because there's a bit of inherent risk still tied to Mike Trout, I think between these two, LeBron is the easy choice for me.
Interesting.
All right. I am going with the LeBron as well. Just because I think when all is said and done, LeBron has a better chance of just being more relevant in culture. I think that's going to play in terms of value. And I'm just thinking more on the investor kind of side of things, right? Like I think if I want to flip or sell it in the future, I'm going to go with LeBron. I don't love the PSA 8, but I think we mentioned in a previous show, when you get to high-end cards like that, the grading doesn't matter as much, especially when there's just so few of them, right? So PSA 8's actually not that bad for an X Factor number to 220. So yeah, and if it was personal collection, like I would never sell it. I would go with Mike Trout. Like I'm a baseball guy first and foremost.
Right.
But if I'm looking to sell and make some profit in the future, I have to go with LeBron.
Nice.
Because I think there was an argument where, or just a kind of a debate where, if Mike Trout came into a restaurant, half the people wouldn't know who he is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas if LeBron came in, there's a good chance that it's a high percentage that will recognize who LeBron is.
For sure. Yeah, it's this is a tough one for me because I'm obviously a baseball guy, and I would crack the PSA 8 and just resubmit it. Well, that's why he said this whole show is sponsored by PSA 8. But I'm gonna go Trout actually. For me, it's a true gem, and the price is right at 25K. I think it's gonna go even down more, and it's in almost like it's true gem mint condition, and for me, I know you shouldn't buy the grade, but I think that would be the kicker for me because I think it has a lot more upside based on, grading in that sense. So you look at the history of Mike Trout Bowman Chrome autos with the main one with the superfractor selling for whatever it did. I forgot what it was, maybe 4 million or something. So obviously it has the legs that's needed, and to get that condition, it's very, very tough, right? There's a lot of, I'd say, PSA 9s and PSA 8s as well during that time. So I'm going to go Trout. I just think his value is a lot cheaper right now. And obviously, you can't go wrong with both from a long-term investment. And I think I just look at Mike Trout's numbers, and he's only 30 years old, man. And to me, it's like he's a 3-time MVP, potentially 4th, and he has a career OPS of over 1,000. Like for me, like being a baseball guy, honestly, OPS tells me everything. Like that's all I need to know in terms of the type of player they are and how good they are, essentially, right? You look at somebody's OPS, and anything above 900 is ridiculous for a season. You had a good season, but Trout having a career OPS over 1,000, and he's doing it consistently in his he's 12 years in. He entered the league when he's 19. He's 30 years old, and his numbers are somewhat improving. So to me, it's like, okay, a lot of people don't, there's a big debate on Mike Trout is if he's the greatest of all time, if he doesn't win a championship and stuff like that. But you know what? He's still young. And for me, it's like, I don't mind taking that risk a bit and enjoying kind of like the rest of his career pan out. So I'm going to go Mike Trout on this one just because I think the value is really good for what you get. Yeah.
Can't go wrong.
Good call.
Good one.
I'm kind of regretting my LeBron choice.
Enjoy your PSA 8.
Yeah. I'm gonna take some heat for that LeBron choice too anyways. All right, fellas. Yeah, since I like to always have a hypothetical 1v1 that is absolutely useless to our listeners and doesn't help anybody at all.
Let's hear this.
I'm going to stick with hypothetical. This is going to be like, I hope listeners don't tune me out on this one because it's a long one, but it's basically Grail collection versus Grail collection. So hear me out. We're going 52 Mantle, Topps PSA 1, $31,000. Ted Williams 1939 play ball PSA 7, $15,000. Jackie Robinson 48 Leaf PSA 2, $10,000. And Babe Ruth 33 Goody, card number 53 because he's got variations, $7,000. So total collection worth $63,000 versus Barry Bonds 86 Topps traded PSA 10, $7,000. Alex Rodriguez 94 SP foil PSA 10, $22,000. Griffey 89
Holy.
Bowman Tiffany PSA 10, $14,000. And Trout 2011 update gold numbered out at 2011 PSA 10, $20,000 for a total value of $63,000. Which Grail collection are you choosing?
Wow. Sorry, that first one you said was a Bonds Tiffany, right? It's a
Sorry, yeah. Topps
it's
Tiffany.
a Tiffany, right?
Yeah,
that's $7K for that. Yeah, that's still cheap, I think, for Bonds.
Dude, one Bonds, I saw a card ladder. One of them sold for like 55 or 5,600.
Oh, that's a great deal
Somebody
for
got
Tiffany.
Somebody got a deal. Yeah.
Tiffany 10, yeah. Go for it, Clark. Stab at this one.
This is an easy one for me. The first list with the vintage baseball guys. After you read that list, you didn't have to say anything else. I'm going with the vintage baseball guys. I just think, there's so much value in vintage, and I just don't see vintage cards going down. Like, it's not as volatile, but it's one of those, blue chips, one blue chip after another. That's a stack of blue chips, and I'd rather invest in that. And I love the art form, the old school baseball cards. That appeals to me as well as a collector.
Right.
The Jackie Robinson 48 is one of my grail cards personally, just for the historical and cultural context and just the meaning behind that card. Yeah. So, that's part of the set you listed out. It's a no-brainer, and I love all those guys in the ladder list. Like, those are the guys I grew up with, but when you talk about vintage, there's only, the selection isn't as great as the Griffeys and the Trouts and the Bonds even. There's different sets out there that you can collect, and I know these are premium, but I like knowing that the 48 leaf is one of maybe two Jackie Robinson cards you could get in that year, and the 48 leaf is the one to go get. So vintage baseball all the way. I just think it's underrated, generally speaking, too.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Clark. Like, for me, and I'm not a big vintage guy, like, in terms of what I have in my collection, but there's no doubt in my mind that vintage is the blue chip of our kind of like markets, right? So the space we're in, and I think, those are grail cards. And if you want to, do it for a long-term investment purpose, I think that's like 52 man, like, that's like a massive card. To acquire even one of those cards is crazy, right? Whereas like a Bonds Tiffany 10 is nice, but like you could still get it. You could still have access to it a lot easier. And like the A-Rod bonds still come from the junk era at the end of the day. And for me, it's Ted Williams, Jackie Robinson, in Babe Ruth. Like, you got history. That list is good enough. You don't even need the condition, to be honest, but I guess that dictates the value. So in terms of a long-term investment, I'm going with the vintage as well. I think vintage is still, strong, and I think it will hold strong in the future as well. I don't think you're going to see too much volatility, like Clark said, and I think it's a safe investment. A lot safer, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you guys convinced me. I was gonna go the modern players, but I'm gonna. Oh man, you know what? I'm gonna stick with the vintage, man. Like, I put in one of my New Year's predictions that your vintage collection will be, your best collection, and I still believe it. I really wanted to pick, the Bonds, A-Rod, Griffey, Trout side, and I really was about to. Because I think on a personal level, I feel like culture-wise, they'll be a lot more relevant with newer collectors and older, especially like my age. These were big-time chase cards back in the day, right? And A-Rod SB foil, that's like Derek Jeter level, right? Like Pop 59. That thing is like ridiculously rare. Trout Gold is like a Pop 50, ridiculously rare. But you know what? I'm going to agree with you guys. Like, Mantle, Ted Williams, Jackie, Babe Ruth. These are the holy grail, all-time iconic baseball cards. So much value in whatever condition. As much as I think on a personal level, I'll probably enjoy the other cards more, it's really hard to go away from the vintage. So, yeah, it's going to be a sweep. It's going to be a sweep.
That was a good one, though. That made that made sense. It's more of a bigger picture thinking. So
yeah,
I like it.
We'll see if I can put that poll up on Instagram. But that's a lot of cards that I can
It is. It is. If you know what, you might have to, like, instead of actually writing out the cards, just put up the actual visual of the cards.
Yeah,
like the four cards versus the four cards, right?
Which one would you rather have? Yeah.
I'm gonna have to split that into like 2 or 3 stories too. People aren't gonna like not be able to see the whole 12 or so cards on it. But anyway, it was a good one. I like that exercise. Okay, we'll end off with this one, and I alluded to earlier in the show. Just the way Vladdy and Shohei have been playing, like one of the reasons why I traded for the Vladdy was I doubted Shohei, could repeat. I thought he would be good, but not this good, and on both sides of pitching and batting. So, yeah, now that we're kind of, a quarter into the season, just want to see if our opinions have changed on these two. So, on one side, are you going to buy a Vladimir Guerrero first Bowman Chrome base rookie card autograph? PSA 10, I think last sold for about $5,200, or the Shohei Ohtani Bowman Chrome 2018 base rookie card auto is the pitching variation, BGS 9.5, just to get closer comps. It's about $5,800 last sold, so both in the 5,000s.
So you mentioned, like, I think John mentioned this before, but the pitching one is kind of considered his first Bowman, I guess, even though it's like his rookie. It's a rookie card auto more so than his first Chrome, like I guess what Vladdy is you're comparing it to. But this one's tough because of Vladdy's down year. I guess it's somewhat of a down year. It's not even that bad, but
he's just starting.
It's like, for me, it's like if Vladdy keeps this up and I like he has a good season, 30 home runs, 260, 270, 100 RBIs, $5,200 for his first Chrome, I think is still high. I think it won't sustain that price if he doesn't perform. So with the season Ohtani's having and the potential run that the Angels are having, I'm actually alluding to the Shohei side a little more based on the price and based off kind of like that particular card, because that's considered his first Bowman because that was the 2018 Bowman release, the same, I believe, where I guess it would be Luis Robert in the same set. So that was the first release, right? Whereas his other one comes a little later. So if it was that, the Bowman Chrome, the hitting image one, then I think I would pick Vladdy. But I think in this case, I'm going to go with the Shohei Ohtani BGS 9.5 based off the prices you listed. Okay. So at $5,800 versus the $5,200. I know it's crazy because I'm a buy on Vlad as well, but right. Shohei's been really impressing me. Yeah.
Yeah, you're completely contradicting the segment before. You got him. You got him to flip.
Well, based on the price, that's why it's like $5,200 for a PSA 10,
sure.
right?
Sure, like that's because we're talking specific cards now.
Yeah.
Clarky, I'm gonna feed into your FOMO. I'm going Shohei Ohtani as well. I think Vladdy, number one, Vladdy should be really easy for you to move this weekend, being at the Toronto Expo. So I think it is like, especially if you can get the price. I know he's down a bit, but if you can kind of get close to a price that you wanted, I think it's a great time to do it. And, we can all say, okay, Vladdy's kind of having a down. He has Triple Crown potential and he can come all the way back up. Yeah, he can. But Shohei has that ability to go all the way up in terms of pricing as well. They both have that. And Shohei is just, the ceiling is just so different than anybody else, right? Mm-hmm. Vladdy is kind of like, like in that Pete Alonso sort of area where if he's not producing Triple Crown, his card might start taking some serious hits, right? So I think Ohtani, in terms of, I think it really boils down to how you feel risk-wise in terms of injury and long-term injury. But if we were starting to feel pretty confident about Ohtani and his injuries, I think long-term where your money sits in 5,000, that's not chump change. This is probably one of your bigger cards in your collection, right? I think your money will probably be safer in somebody like Ohtani.
Okay. Yeah. I don't have to belabor the point. It's going to be a Shohei sweep. The reason why I asked is I'm flipping now, right? Like I said, at the beginning of the season, I was all in on Vladdy. And I think Hyung, you mentioned it before in this show, hitting is down across the league. Right. So I'm sure the batters are adjusting to the pitching this season. But yeah, just seeing that Shohei could sustain the level of play that he did last year is just super impressive. And, I'm kind of FOMOing. Yeah, for sure. Once I buy it, he could get injured and I'm damn it.
It's back to Vladdy, right?
Yeah. I agree, John. The ceiling is incredible for Shohei, but the bottom could be high. Just as there's higher risk for sure.
Sure.
So I'm playing into my FOMO a bit, but right now, as it stands, I want to get back in on Shohei. So it's a Shohei sweep. All right, thanks guys for listening to another episode of Cards to the Moon. We really appreciate all our listeners, all our subscribers. If you enjoyed the show, we appreciate you giving us 5 stars. It does really help us out a lot. And we'll see you again next week for a brand new episode. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.